All right, welcome everybody. Today is December 11th. It's our last city council and city workshop of 2024. And this is our 5:33 p.m. city workshop. On the agenda tonight, the first up, appreciation for Councilor Blum. Do you want to lead us off a little bit or you want me to lead off? Yeah. So we've been on council together since 2019. And she's all right, she's okay. But she's been my council president for last couple of years and couldn't have done it without her. I mean, she's a detail person, which is what I need because I'm kind of not as much a detail person, which makes me a great mayor because I can concentrate on being funny and good looking instead of having to worry about the details.
Two or three aren't bad.
Yeah, right. No, seriously, I really actually enjoy the 50,000 foot level. Council together is like a 30,000 foot level. We do a lot of policy and a lot of way out there stuff, and I like to even take the even more way out there. But she's really good at details, much like Jennifer and Susan and Gary are. So it was always good that the four of them together could figure something out, and so I didn't have to because I'm kind of dumb. So, but you're awesome, and I'm gonna miss you. I can't really thank you enough. You've done 2 full 4-year terms and another whole another year, basically. So 9 years. And that's a lot to give to your community. Think about that. If in the military you get to retire after 20 years, she's almost halfway there to full retirement. But no, the retirement plan for city council is awful. It's thank you very much. See you out there on the sidewalk. There was cake there.
At least it didn't say let them eat cake on the side.
Right. Well, but yeah, we're gonna really miss you. And again, there's not enough thanks for giving that many years of your life to a community. There's just we can't give you enough, but we probably will give you something. I don't know what it is though.
We'll get you something. So a year and a half I've been here. I've had the opportunity to work with Council President Blum. And I mean, as the mayor said, I mean, having somebody as a council president that has that experience is super helpful, I think, for the rest of the council, but also for staff. The experience, the fact that a lot of the history of this community and the greater area, of course, and all your years of service at the county as well. So your familiarity with how things work and the importance of public service and knowing the ins and outs and the whys behind the things that we do. I guess how to describe Andrea's, your wisdom, you're pragmatic, you speak your mind, which, really, your leadership has been steady, and I think a great voice for the city in this time of like a lot of dramatic change. It's been a very important era for the city as we've kind of grown and dealt with some, difficult issues as we've matured and sort of evolved as a community. Had staff put together a list of all the things that have happened in the last 9 years, and it's pretty significant. If you think back and all the work, just from all the plans, like the utility master plans, the Sisters Country vision, the comprehensive plan, the housing needs analysis, the housing plan, starting the UGB process. And then, things like dark skies and, the short-term rentals and your voice and how many times you've revisited some of these things, but that's necessary, again, in a dynamic and evolving city. And then think about the built environment, how much the city has grown and how much, you've been a part of that and helping, Paul and Public Works and the advisory boards, weigh on issues like East Portal Mobility Hub and getting funding for that. Barclay Drive, the Creekside Campground improvements, and the riparian restoration work that was done, Hood Avenue, all the landscaping and lighting projects there, and that design of Adams Avenue that we hope to build for you here in the next few years, the new playground at Village Green, of course, the roundabout here.
Four city managers.
4 city managers,
5 city managers
had to have endured.
One was interim, but yeah.
But yeah, just so much that had gone on during your tenure, and you were an integral part of that. So we really appreciate it. And then it has to be said too, with your involvement on all the intergovernmental work that you do with the Coordinated Houseless Response Office, the, Regional Housing Council now, COAC,
Those things you're not going to miss at all anymore.
all the time, and, traveling back and forth to Bend and Redmond and participating in those important committees that really have helped elevate Sisters as a partner in this region. So thank you for all your leadership. We certainly appreciate it. Of course, we have stuff for you.
Yeah, what you're getting at, she's really the last person on council that is taken the City of Sisters from the Wild Wild West days to the steady leadership we have now, and it's because of her. So, go ahead.
So speaking of Wild Wild West, we have your very own Western Blum Boulevard. Display that proudly. You can.
There's going to be talk in the neighborhood.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, good talk. Good talk. You might recognize this. Your very own mug is back. Well, you leveled up because of your Diet Cokes and needing the bigger insulated cup.
People kept stealing this.
Other Andrea, same.
Yeah. Thank
A little card from us. Okay. Yeah. And then something else you can open here. It's heavy. Careful. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, you can just take out the board.
Oh, good. So when I have come home. Oh, and it said City of Sisters, never underestimate your impact.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The goodies go on. Thank you so
What kind of
much.
goodies are they?
Oh, you'll never know.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank
I
you.
guess I'm not invited to her house. I've trick or treated at your house though.
You will be very missed.
Thank you. You want to say anything?
Can we say things too?
Yeah. You guys want to say anything?
Unless you want the last word.
Well, she'll get the last word. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I
Sorry.
just want to say that I've enjoyed every minute working with you. You've been an inspiration, and I'm so glad you're leaving, but I'm glad you're gonna, sorry, that was all I meant to say. I'm so glad you're gonna have some free time. That's what I meant to say. You've worked very hard over these years, and the city's a better place for it, undoubtedly, and I really appreciate your time, and I'm hoping that you get some well-deserved time yourself to have a little bit of fun with your family. Yes, exactly. But you know where we are, and you're always welcome back, and we always have lots of committees, so.
If we need to delve into the history books, are we allowed to call you?
75th anniversary
Right.
that we did that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
The last night, you got to worry about that. Thinking about starting my 5th year on council, and I had 13 years on another elected board. And I can say that of all the individuals I worked with, you're in the top 1%. It's hard to find somebody who dedicates the amount of time that you dedicate and who brings the clarity sometimes to difficult discussions and does it in a way that nobody's feelings are hurt and moves the agenda along on those issues. So it's been a pleasure, very much so, serving with you, and you will be missed. And I also want to point out that there are bolts on that sign with nuts on the back, and the average street sign in this town is on a post full of holes. So it might be possible to do some kind of illegal modifications, but I'm not going to tell you where.
I'll talk to community development about it.
Yeah.
What we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I remember when the three of us were all running together
Mhm.
in one of the last elections. And that was my first encounter with y'all, and that was a lot of fun. After we finished it was COVID time, so we were on Zoom and so we got to hear each other's responses and that's all we knew about each other, really. But afterwards, we said, well, however this goes, we should go out and get a beer, but we never did do that. Probably because we all got on and we decided we'd be a quorum, so we really couldn't go out and drink or anything. But I want to thank everybody for being on this council with me. Very few people actually get to have an opportunity to make a significant impact on their communities, like being a counselor in Sisters has been able to do. And it's a gift. It's a thorn in many occasions, but it's also a gift. And I have appreciated most every moment of it. And I've seen this community grow from, and the government grow from the basics to blossoming into a real energetic community that everybody is proud of. And every time you are at an event, people go, oh, you're from Sisters. That's so great. And it didn't always used to be that way. We went through a period of time when we could not hold public meetings like we've been doing on the UGB and the visioning and things like that, because if it was proposed by the city, people weren't that excited about it. They weren't that sure it was a great thing. It wasn't something everybody was going to participate in. And so we decided that there had to be some other entity in this community that had to partner and get this community together again so that whether it was a city project or some other kind of project, this community could move forward, and thus the birth of Citizens for Community. C4C was born out of necessity. And so we were able to throw ideas to them and say, this is an issue that's really important and the city needs feedback on it. Can you take it and run with it? And they were able to do that. And that gradually allowed us to garner back the trust. And so that we could pull off our own meetings, but we still rely on them a lot. But it really made a difference when it's surprising how there's a vacuum, something arises. And in this community, there are so many people that are willing to step up that it was within weeks of that discussion when it materialized and it made a significant difference here. But I've loved working with the staff there. There's been a huge turnover in staff as well. And so many of the people that I started working with are no longer even here. But we have now have probably the best staff we've ever had. We had a few weak spots over the years, but they were all worked through, and we got a tight running machine now, thanks to Carrie and Paul and Joe and just recently, Jordan, so far, so good. So far, so good. He's got a couple of real strange folks to follow and a couple of pretty good folks. So I anticipate that with his leadership, the community is only going to continue to be, to blossom. I guess that's what it is. Because I really see, especially with the UGB expansion, that's kind of what we're on the edge of that. So thank you all, and I appreciate all of the recognition. And it was a wonderful opportunity. You too, Eric.
Yeah. You can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. You've shown up every time you've been asked to. I don't know of many meetings you've missed, to be honest with you. You're very.
Had to pull out a little early a couple of times.
Yeah, well, and I hope you get to enjoy more time with your husband. That's super important, and I'm looking forward to that too in a couple of years, actually, to be honest with you. But thank you again.
You're welcome.
All right. Next item. I guess we'll let Scott come up. We're going to talk about efficiency measures update and Director of Community Development, Scott Woodford. Haven't seen you since, was it last night? Or was it the night before last? I can't remember anymore.
Was
A couple nights ago.
a little fuzzy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Long night, but successful.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'm here to talk to you tonight about is efficiency measures. This was a project that we worked on several years ago that we went through a process to come to an understanding or of what efficiency measures are and which ones of all the possibilities that we could choose from, the ones that we wanted to implement as a community. And so I think this was maybe Councilor Blum, maybe this is one of your ideas that ended up as a goal, was to start creating a system where when we do big development code amendments, that we circle back and discuss the effectiveness of those and see where we need to reevaluate or recalibrate. So the first one that to kind of go through that process is the efficiency measures. And so a little bit of background on efficiency measures, if in case you've forgotten already, or for the benefit of the members of the audience here. It sort of came out of the comprehensive plan update process. And with that process, when we updated our housing needs analysis, that's kind of the first time we really identified that we were going to need to expand the urban growth boundary. We knew, we did some initial analysis that said that we were going to need a certain number of acres, and it was evident through looking at how much land we had left in our boundaries that was not going to be able to satisfy that growth. But also through that process, we learned that, you know, talking with the state and seeing the experience of other communities, that you just can't always go straight from A to Z. You got to go through, you know, B, C, D, E, and F along the way. And so those, in this case, that was the efficiency measures. And basically what efficiency measures are taking a look at your existing development code, essentially, and seeing, are you utilizing the land that you already have, that you still have? We didn't have a whole lot left, but we still had some left. Are you utilizing it as efficiently as you can, as you should? And so they require this process where you go through and consider. You're not required to adopt any of these measures, but you're required to consider efficiency measures. And so the city, like I said, we spent about a year going through that process. We worked heavily through the Planning Commission as our stakeholder committee, but we also got in touch with the community and had open houses and talked with key stakeholders, those, you know, developers, people, affordable housing developers, to kind of get an idea of which measures seemed most appropriate, or which measures would help boost housing production in the community. And so through that process, we towards the end of 2022, we basically were able to distill that long list of strategies, of the potential list of strategies we could have implemented, into a smaller list of recommended efficiency measures. And we also, at the same time, we adopted many measures into our development code at the same time. So that process took a long time, but I think it was ultimately a good process for the community, and I think it will help with the urban growth boundary amendment process that the state has seen that we've taken those measures. So why are we talking about it tonight? Council goals for 2024-25 under housing livability and growth was to monitor, reevaluate, and consider implementation of additional strategies of the housing plan and efficiency measures report. Housing plan was also a effort that we went through at the same time, because they were sort of interrelated. Essentially, both goals were to try to One was to use land more efficiently and to spur housing. The housing plan was what strategies could we put into place to get more housing, ideally more workforce housing, more affordable housing. All housing is good, but the housing plan was really with a focus on affordable and workforce housing.
Scott, quick question.
Yeah.
The document that was in the packet has quite a bit of red line in it. That was the document we worked on 2 years ago, and those are the red lines from 2 years ago. They're
Correct.
not changes currently.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure that was the case, but it's been 2 years, so
Yeah.
I'm old and feeble.
It was a little confusing. Actually.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. No new amendments are being proposed at this time.
Okay.
So,
Good.
it was just merely a reference to
The changes that were made.
identify the changes we did make.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. So what were those efficiency measures? We'll spend a little time kind of refreshing your memory on those so that we can have a conversation about which ones have been effective and remember the ones we considered but decided not to go forward with. Probably the biggest one that we adopted was raising the minimum density in our multifamily residential zone, as well as increase the maximum. The minimum we increased because we were starting to see developers do single family development in our multifamily zone with really small lots. They were able to meet the minimum density with single family. So it was identified that we need to raise that so that we are getting multifamily development from our multifamily zone. It was an effort to preserve the purpose of that multifamily zone. And then also to increase the allowed density in that zone to get some more infill, to make it more feasible for projects. So it was, we increased the density from what previously was 7 units an acre to 15 units acre to 15 to 20 by right. And then you could do, or 15 to 30 rather, I think. And then we also allowed even higher density, going 30 to 50 units per acre with a minor conditional use, 30 to 40 with a minor conditional use, 40 to 50 if you provided affordable housing as part of that development. So far, I haven't probably had too many projects take advantage of this. I don't think that because we also considered increasing the height limits as well as reducing some of the parking restrictions. I think what you'll find is that upper level of that density is probably not achievable without that, or without some variances to those. It's just not really feasible up at that higher end. But I think over time we'll see some more multifamily being built because of those higher density allowances. We also added that minor conditional use for that higher density. So we didn't want to make it a by right thing that you could go a higher density. We wanted to see what it looked like and see what the impacts were, and before we approve that. So that's kind of a safeguard in allowing that higher density. And then another big component was reducing the minimum lot sizes to get more housing, infill housing. That included reducing the single family minimum lot size in the multifamily and residential zones, as well as the duplex, triplex, and fourplex allowances. So in the case of the residential zone, going down to 4,500 square feet from its previous minimum of 6,000, and then reducing the duplex, triplex, and fourplex to make them more palatable and more feasible. We considered, like I said, the height limits. What we were proposing at the time was to allow buildings to go up to 50 feet. Right now, if you'll remember, you can go to 50 feet, but the area between 35 and 50 cannot be habitable. And so the proposal at the time was, if we were allowing buildings to go 50 feet, why not just allow that 35 to 50 have housing, residential units? But ultimately, we decided not to do that, and there were some concerns about fire access and
Fire safety.
fire safety. Yeah,
Just in general.
yep. That we decided not to go there at the time. We also looked at parking requirements, reducing parking requirements. If you, obviously, if you take up less of your site with surface parking, that means, unless you're doing like under building parking, that allows more density on the site. We discussed that. I think ultimately we figured because of the lifestyle people have here with things and toys, and the fact that our transit system, well, nice to have, is maybe not to the point where people could live without a car completely. And I think the direction we decided to go in is, instead of reducing the parking requirements, that we would entertain parking variances for affordable housing projects or senior housing, those kinds of things, to do it on a case-by-case basis versus just making kind of sweeping changes to our parking requirements. Allowing mixed, one of them, another one was to consider allowing mixed-use development in commercial zones other than the downtown commercial. Well, we also allow it in the highway, we already allowed it in the highway commercial and the downtown commercial, so that wouldn't have really changed much. We allow some limited mixed use in our North Sisters Business Park zone. And then the only other really area that we could consider was light industrial. And I think that we decided that we really want to preserve that for light industrial. When you start mixing those two, it's not really compatible. Encourage mixed use development. We still do that in our zones. So I don't, that wouldn't have been a big change. One additional big change, change that should make a big difference is in our downtown commercial zone, was to create some overlay zones where you could do residential only development. Before that, if you wanted to do residential, you had to do it in a mixed use arrangement. And we were starting to hear that was could be a deterrent to building housing, given that the demand for commercial isn't quite what it used to be. And so we created some overlay zones that were not along Cascade, not along Main or Hood, but some of the kind of the farther reaches of the downtown zone, and created those opportunities so somebody didn't have to do a commercial element. They could just do residential only. And then, amazingly enough, duplexes before this were conditional use in the residential zone. So in an effort to create more housing unit types, more flexibility, with the idea that those maybe fit in more in an infill situation a little more efficiently, as well as middle housing units. When I talk about middle housing units, I'm talking about duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, that those would offer more opportunities for affordable or workforce housing. And so we added triplex and fourplex uses into the residential zone, but only as a minor conditional use. We added that at the end. We were okay with the concept, but we wanted to, again, see what the impacts would be and make sure we reviewed that. Then you can see some other policies, efficiency measure strategies that we considered. Adopting policy language to support infill. Well, that's all over the comprehensive plan, so we didn't really need to do that. Allow height bonuses for affordable housing. Again, we kind of went away from that because of the concern with fire safety. But we did institute a density bonus program for provision of affordable housing. So if a developer provided housing that was restricted to 120%, I think it's up to 150% or less of the area median income, then you could get an extra, depending on what the restriction is. If you restricted it to lower incomes, you would get a slightly higher density bonus. So if you were doing a multifamily development, it would give you a couple extra units. And it also allowed for a reduction in minimum lot sizes for cottages and for single family and those kinds of things. So that was adopted. And then other strategies that you can use to infill is taking land that's non-residential and maybe vacant and not have really another use, and rezoning it to allow residential uses. So one example, we haven't done a lot of that, but one example that hopefully will be successful is rezoning the vacant land over in the Heavenly Acres that will support the Trinity Place project to multifamily. So that was an example. of that. Any questions on that before I kind of give a few examples of what we've seen so far as our experience with these so far?
Well, I don't know who the council was, but I think they did a darn good job at picking the ones that were important, but not having to do every one of them, which might have been much more extreme, to be honest. I don't know who those people were, but they were
Yeah.
good.
We were good stuff.
So what's the experience been with them so far? You know, we've had some projects go forward that maybe wouldn't have if those efficiency measures hadn't been in place. I can think of three recent projects, cottage projects that came forward, projects proposed by Habitat for Humanity. You know, one in the Woodlands and two recently along Adams that proposed taking advantage of the affordable housing density bonus to make their projects pencil better. We've also had a handful of partitions and lot line adjustments that maybe wouldn't have happened or certainly wouldn't have yielded the number of lots that they do or had than they would have been able to do previously. We just, interestingly enough, we just received an application for our first middle housing unit type for a triplex in a residential zone district. That's going to be a minor conditional use. That's an example of.
Explain to me what will happen now that it's a minor conditional use.
So they will have to, minor conditional use is a type 2 review.
Yep.
So it's just, they'll have to demonstrate that they meet the conditional use criteria, compatibility, mitigation of impacts to neighbors. It's a little bit more of a subjective process. But you know, we went through that. It was a full conditional use with the gas station space age proposal that we applied the conditional use criteria to. So it gives you a little more latitude to mitigate impacts, potential impacts that are.
And that's staff level?
At staff level, it would, you know, obviously all staff level approvals, type 2s get copied to the planning commission and they could always call it up. Or, you know, if a neighbor had an issue and they provided comment during the public comment period, they could always appeal it to planning commission. So there's a process that they could go through if they felt like, you know.
And is the property posted indicating that it's subject to that? So if individuals want to have some say, they can, like it is for any other sort of a change that we see around town, the big old yellow sign sticking out there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good.
Talking with Emmy Shoup, our associate planner, she said that she's had multiple discussions of potential projects wishing to apply the efficiency measures, and for one reason or another, they haven't yet come to fruition. And it's not necessarily because of, you know, the efficiency measures weren't efficient enough or something of that nature. It usually was a different issue that maybe prevented that project from going forward. We've identified a few tweaks that we think that we need to make. Nothing, I don't think of too much substance, but we did notice, or one of our consultants out in the community noticed after we got it adopted that in relation to townhome lot sizes that were reduced to 2,000 square feet per townhome lot, but we didn't change the minimum lot width. So if you had a 2,000 square foot townhome lot and you had a 35-foot minimum lot width at the frontage, that results in a 57-foot deep lot. You take out 20 feet for the garage setback and 15 feet for the rear setback, you're about 22 feet. So really,
The lot doesn't fit,
well, it doesn't fit.
doesn't fit.
Yeah, so that's a tweak we might need to make. Some of the townhome design standards, I didn't mention this, but in addition to allowing housing unit types to be in residential neighborhoods and multifamily neighborhoods, we thought it was important to apply some minimum design standards. So you're not just getting these garage-scapes, you know, that there's an entry still visible and that the driveway widths are manageable, that there's a certain amount of windows facing the street, just to kind of make sure that they fit well into the neighborhoods. There's some cross-referencing in the code that I think issues that our staff has run into that we need to clean up. Probably need to clarify the affordable housing density section. Just I think it needs to be written to make it a little more clear what portion applies to multifamily and what portion applies to single family or duplex or cottage. One thing that staff is hearing is that garages, the requirement that a garage be built, can sometimes be a barrier to infill development, and that's something that
I'd be in favor of looking at that for sure.
I'd be in favor of looking at it, but you're gonna have a hell of a time convincing me that it's not a good idea to have a garage with just where our streets are laid out and those sorts of things.
doesn't mean you wouldn't have a parking space or.
Yeah, I think if you allowed a parking space on property, I think you could.
I know, I've got a different opinion on that. And we'll have a chance to talk about it when the time comes up.
Yeah.
So,
I'd also really like to take a look at the design standards, not just for middle housing. I think we need to tighten that up across the board. I think we've had a few developments recently where a lot of the facades and elevations look very, very similar next door to each other. And I'd like to remove some of the repetitiveness of what these houses look like.
you have, now, that we agree on that one totally, but
So I think that can be across all housing, not
Yeah.
just affordable housing.
yeah, I think
I mean,
that,
I don't want to tighten up affordable housing so it's not affordable anymore, but I think we can do a better job of making sure that our houses aren't looking like just a bunch of the same thing. It doesn't matter if they're 800,000 or if they're 200,000. They're still the same thing, one lot to another.
well, and I think as we look at higher density and some of these density things, having that kind of variety in the way the house is presented to the street keeps the character of the town as opposed to making it start to look like some of the almost mall-like developments you can find in certain parts of Bend and Redmond.
I'd like that to be a goal next year, actually. If you if you're taking a light list over there, Jordan, of future goals, discussions, thanks, that'll just help so I don't have to remember.
When you're looking at infill, not in a new development, have we had any blowback from what's been allowed, that any surprises from the neighborhood or concerns or anything that you thought, maybe that was too much?
So I mean, yeah, I mean, there's been some questions about where certain things should apply or not. Reductions of lot sizes, the things that need to be clarified. It would be good for council to weigh in on that, to know where it should be applied and where it shouldn't. We haven't had a lot of our big master plans kind of came in after or before the efficiency measures. I think Sunset Meadows, even though it was kind of that same time frame, I think it had already been submitted into the process, so they didn't take advantage of any of these. So we don't really have a whole lot of examples, I guess, yet. But there's been some questions about, what was meant to apply to certain, what, like affordable housing standards, was it meant to apply to certain things like cottage units and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's important to evaluate what we have done and how it's worked, so that when we do the UGB expansion, we'll know what we should allow, what it will look like and how it will feel. And so when we get some master plans over there, that'll make it a lot easier, because until you actually see it in the neighborhood, it's a little hard to see what you're talking about and what the impact really is. But do you feel that having this in the code now does forestall the questioning of, well, have you looked internally enough and allowed enough infill before you've started your UGB process, that should not be something we need to worry about?
I do. Yeah, we've had some conversations with the state, and our consultants do a lot of work around the state as well, and they know kind of what the norm is, and we've talked to groups like Central Oregon Land Watch, and I think they appreciate the work that we did to limit the amount. By doing these efficiency measures, we've essentially lessened the amount of expansion that we need to do in our UGB. So getting some positive feedback there.
If there was no state requirements, we might need 300 acres or,
Right.
350 or whatever, if we hadn't done that process. Is that correct?
I still kind of feel like we're going to end up with a pretty good percentage of affordable housing in our community, especially with some of the additional apartments coming online and the cottages and habitat and whatever. And we will always have a nice supply of expensive housing. What impact do you see that this is actually going to have or likely to have on that middle income? I mean, our triplexes and things like that, unless they're, you own them, they're condo kind of things. Are they really middle income housing? I mean, do we assume that that's what a triplex is a middle income housing? That's kind of what we're referring to in here, are we not? That's what we mean by that?
Yeah, it depends on a lot of factors. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be affordable, but
Right.
I think that you set up the conditions for them to be, I wouldn't say affordable, I say more affordable by given
It could be.
given the arrangement and given, the fact that they tend to be a little bit on smaller units. I think at least sets the conditions up for them being potentially more affordable.
There can be different levels of duplexes that are, just, it's fairly easy to make smaller affordable ones. There's medium-sized ones that might fit into middle housing, and then, if you look around Bend or Redmond, especially there's some parts of Bend that have some, attached townhomes, which are essentially duplexes, even if they're owned separate properties. They're the same thing. They have a common wall, and they're hugely expensive. $800,000 on a couple that I know of down in Bend, that each side was $800,000. So I think that having the openness that it fits in the middle housing means that a developer has a choice to either make a couple of cottages that can be middle housing, they're small, or they have medium-sized, and you can build to the limit. And I think it gives them the freedom to do that with the code that we've already come up with. Obviously, if he says we need to refine it a little bit, where there's probably some wiggle room to straighten it up a little bit and make it a little easier to fit into. But I think for the most part, what we've done, and then the creation of the middle housing fund, right? Don't we have that too now? Or
Well, that's the workforce housing grant.
workforce housing grant? Yeah.
Out of urban renewal. I was going to say, middle housing we use that term for a couple different things. It's middle incomes or workforce housing. I think the other definition for missing middle is that we have high density, which is apartments and condos and things that are, a lot of units per acre. And then you have low density, which is traditionally single family homes. The missing middle is often that type of housing, like duplexes and triplexes and stuff that existed before exclusionary zoning, that cities are now trying to go back, and the state is trying to push cities to include more of that type of zoning, where it's kind of medium density, middle density housing, which is kind of more affordable, right? Because it's not a standalone on a big lot, single family home, or it's not, an apartment or a rental unit. The mayor's right. You can have condos that are very expensive. That's high density,
Yeah.
and
Hello, Vale.
there might be a
Colorado.
few in our town too,
Yeah.
right? But yes, we have, the Affordable Housing Grant Program. I think some of the recommendations that, Land Watch had and stuff is to continue to look at that and different funding mechanisms to create more funds for encouraging affordable housing and missing middle or workforce housing too.
Yeah. I mean, I think as long as we're creating the environment that, some of that missing middle will be cottages and some of it might be single family, and some of it
Mhm.
might be duplexes, triplexes. We really want to have developers have at least enough wiggle room that they can decide for themselves to be able to make it, because if the developer can't afford to do it, he's not going to build it, right? So if we give them a little bit of squeak, a little bit of wiggle room, you kind of have to, right? So,
And one thing I'd like to visit, we didn't really get a chance to, the last round was the, you know, the SRO dormitory style housing as well. There's, a lot of possible benefits to that, if you just don't have that ability right now, if like
it's a little off to the side, sorry.
the school district, for instance, wanted to have a dorm for students, or, if a large employer here wanted to have their own
What's the,
housing for seasonal employees, things like that, we just don't have.
what's the proper term for that? Is it different than is it different than what we don't have?
Housing
Okay,
term.
yeah.
Single room occupancy, I think is the.
I think we should
SRO.
definitely make sure we have room for that somewhere in our code.
Well,
Yeah,
And I would just say, when you think about the thing that I raised a little objection to on garages, I think one of my conditions would have to be significantly increased storage space within inside the building footprint,
Sure.
so that we don't have what typically ends up in a lot of people's garages pushed out into the front yard or onto the porches and those kinds of things. We've had that discussion a bit with some of our rentals and making sure there was a certain amount of storage space, but I think that is woefully inadequate as it currently is.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes it depends, like on seasonal housing, not as much, because people
Yeah.
are only here for 6 months and then they move on somewhere else. And then maybe in the summer people come and they're only here for 6 months, and then the winter people come. But I agree with you. I'm glad, didn't we add storage square footage to multifamily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but
It didn't exist before we did.
Oh,
that.
I know it did, and I'm glad we have that, but I think when we start talking about leaving the decision of a garage up to the developer or the designer, without really taking into consideration other aspects of the neighborhood and those sorts of things, we need to be sure that we have not created an attractive nuisance to that particular neighborhood by not having a place for the toys that are not driven every day to be stored.
yeah,
Or
not
ridden.
just toys, but it could be, work equipment. or,
Yes, exactly.
Things for
So-
livelihood, so.
And there are some examples of that in town. As you ride around some of our streets, you can find examples of stuff stored in the city right away that is, should be undercover or out of sight.
Good point. What do you need from us tonight?
Good stuff. Any other things that you saw out there that, you want to take another look at as we bring these back?
No, I really think that housing should be, we need to loop that in at some point of this process. And a lot of the things that we're talking about, I think it's very important that we get it done as the UGB is figured out, because before people get annexed, we want to make sure we have everything in place, all of our design standards, parking, the garage question, whatever, congregate housing, make sure we have room for that. If there's any, if we're going to tighten it up, let's tighten it up and do it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we need to do it in the next year or so when the UGB move happens, then everything's already in place.
I agree.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there's going to be work to do next year, right?
I can see the goal setting as we kind of refine, what we're going to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it might be 1, 2, or 3 goals, and it's all on housing, and, we have a housing part of our goal setting, right? So,
Yep.
okay.
Well, Scott doesn't have anything else to do next year. So
No,
we'll have lots
he's
of-
been bored the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, now the UGB's kind of being put to bed. He's got
Yeah.
plenty of free time on his hand.
All right. Any other questions for Scott or Jordan? Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll take a break here. We'll close the workshop. There was nothing else on the agenda except maybe other business, and I think I'd rather take a normal break and get to the city council meeting on time at 6:30. So thank you much. All right, welcome everybody to the December 11th regular city council meeting. It's 6:30 PM. We're on time. Wow, doesn't happen often. This meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Andrea, lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
All right, time for a little bit of roll call, Rebecca.
Mayor Preden,
I think I'm here.
Council President Blum,
Here.
Counselor Lutz,
Here.
Counselor Ross.
Present.
All right, next up is approval of the agenda. I could probably use a motion on that.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right, next up is visitor communication.
There is none.
Okay. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anybody want a motion on that?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I would like to say that in the consent agenda, just for everybody's knowledge, there are the minutes. We also are certifying the election results in the consent agenda and approving a procurement. So, all those in favor of those, please say aye. Aye. It's all four of us, so we're good there. All right. Thank you. All right. Next up is council business. We have a public hearing in consideration of resolution 2024-23, a master fee schedule update. Director O'Neill, Finance. Hello,
Thank you.
how's it going?
Pretty good, thank you.
Yeah. Excel spreadsheet, tip of
Excel
the week.
spreadsheet. You want it the tip of the month? Okay. So I will say, if you have a newer version of Excel, this isn't usually a problem. But when I started in accounting, this was a big issue. When you add down a column, you need to make sure you're adding a line between the total and the column that you're adding. The reason for that is if you add more columns down, it might not include all of those numbers.
Oh,
So if
boy.
you have 5 numbers and you add like 5 lines to add 10 numbers maybe, you need to make sure you have a line and so it includes all of those. If you don't, then you could exclude them. And the reason why was we had a tax client that had a list of charitable donations that they sent to the accounting firm, and someone added a bunch of lines in there, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of each one, and those were not added, and the client and catching it, and obviously the firm got in trouble and
Oh, boy.
the like. So anyway, be aware of
that
that.
in
But the
mind.
newer versions of Excel do include those automatically, but some of the old ones don't. So
So next time, let's talk circular references, please.
okay, that's fine. Okay, do we want to open the public hearing?
Oh, yeah. I'm opening the public hearing.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. So just have a couple things tonight. The first thing is camp fees. Now, as I stated in the staff report, it's been 3 years since we increased our camp fees, and staff is proposing a $5 increase per fee. So there's 5 basic fees. You have your hiker biker, and that is a little lawn area kind of near the bridge in the creek. Then you have the non-hookups, and that's just dry camping. So no electricity, no water, no sewer. And then you have your 50 and 30 amp hookups that come with sewer as well and water. And, you know, after the season, staff talks to the camp hosts, and then we talk internally. And these are one of the price was one of the things that we wanted to address, and for a few reasons. The first one with the hiker biker, those have never been actually increased since I've been here. They do take a lot of maintenance in terms of the showers, the site. You know, they get used hard. A lot of the PCT hikers are just, you know, they're looking for an opportunity to kind of get cleaned up, and they sprawl out there. So that was some feedback we got from the camp hosts. Some of the other sites, we just, like I said, also in the staff report, we have some increased fees for camp hosts. We upgraded the wireless connections there, even a new wireless access point. So we're investing in the campground, and we just want to recuperate that a little bit more. So we're just proposing that $5 increase per site.
Okay.
And that should it should amount to about, $20,000 to $30,000 per camp season.
And the money that we get from the campground, can you remind us of what the bulk of that goes to?
Yeah, so fortunately, that goes to really subsidize our parks department, and we've gotten really close, if not to hitting that right on every year. If we didn't have any capital improvements or some of these big projects go forth, then we would be break even on that, which is great. So that means the taxpayers are not subsidizing the city parks to an extent, at least in the parks department.
Right.
The second is a transportation SDC inflationary increase. And the reason why this inflationary increase goes down in January as opposed to June, like a lot of the other SDCs increases, was when we updated the master plan, and that was kind of a head nod that we wouldn't increase those fees right away or increase that inflationary index right away. We would do it in January. So that's why it's done there, and pretty small 1.8%, I believe, increase for that. So that's a lot smaller than it's been actually the last 2 years. It's been above 4.5%, I believe, the last 2 years.
Okay.
And that is all we have for the master fee schedule.
Okay. All right, that's enough for the staff report. Do we have any public comments in this public hearing?
I see none.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing, and now it's on to council discussion. Does anybody have any heartache or heartburn about any of these fee increases?
No, I would say as a person who travels and uses the campsites around the United States quite a bit, they've gone up everywhere. And I've always thought that the $5 hiker biker was quite a bargain. And I know we have folks that take a little bit of advantage of, not so much
Yep.
PCT folks, but others. And there's no question when someone comes out off the trail after a week and a half to 2 weeks, I could see where there would be an impact on facilities just in terms of cleaning themselves up. And I also have noticed, in a good note, that since the fencing went up and we've done the creekside riparian enhancements, more and more people are washing their dishes in the sink that you provide rather than in the creek. So
Agreed.
Good.
And they're also charged the taxes, the state and local taxes, so.
Yep.
Does that usually come out to, I mean, I know we have a wide range here between $10 and $55, but how much is that usually in addition?
Yeah, so between the state and local, it's 10.49%. Yep.
And then any of the, I'm assuming in the staff report, the like credit card processing fees, those are already included. They're not paying that on top.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. That we absorbed that.
Okay.
You got anything, Andrea?
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah, pretty simple stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Could probably entertain a motion at this point.
I don't have the wording.
Oh, I move to approve resolution 2024-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to do roll call vote or a regular vote?
I believe it's just regular.
Regular vote. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any dissension? I was an aye too, so there you go. All right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you so much.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay. We're on to other business. Apparently we have some appointments tonight. You want to do that first? I guess it's next on the list, so I guess we should do that next. As many of you may know or don't know, we now have all of our board appointments at the same time. A couple years ago, they were willy-nilly all year round, a little bit of a pain in the butt. So I think Assistant City Manager Prosser got that thing going. It was a great idea. Streamline the process so it's all at the same time at the end of the year, so we could have proper interviews and proper evaluation of the people that we're having on the boards. It used to be, I got a call from the mayor and say, hey, do you want to be on the planning commission? And that's how I got on the planning commission. And while that sounds kind of fun for a mayor to have that kind of power, it's probably not really a good idea, and that everybody that's appointed should be known by other staff and have a little bit of an interview so we kind of know what they're about and and why they're trying to serve. And I think it's a great idea.
And now people actually apply.
Mhm.
We don't have to coerce them. How
Um,
great is that?
Yeah, usually we have at least double the people applying for the positions that are open, so it's really good. So I'm going to hopefully say these names right. If I don't, I do apologize in advance. We'll start with the Planning Commission. I appoint Eli Madrone to a 4-year term. I appoint Anna Rasmussen to a 4-year term, and I think I got hers right. And I appoint Julia Molnar to a 4-year term. So congratulations to them. On the City Parks Advisory Board, I appoint Asa Sarver to a 3-year term. I appoint Nancy Connolly to a 3-year term. I think I've heard that name before. I appoint Laura Lees, is that right? Okay, to a 3-year term. I appoint Matthew McClellan to a 3-year term, and I appoint Joshua Smith to a 2-year term. Congratulations to those 5 new City Parks Advisory Board.
And I would like to thank whichever counselor sat in for me on those while I was enjoying myself in New Zealand. So thank you for doing that.
I think it was Susan, because, so thank you, Susan, for that. For Urban Forestry Board, I appoint Emily Curtis to a 3-year term. So congratulations to her. And for the Budget Committee, we had 5 very, very good people. We can only choose 2. So I appoint Brian Matolius to a 2-year term, and I appoint Tom Bollinger to a 3-year term. So thank you again to the people that didn't make it. There will be more opportunities for all of you if you want it, and I'm sure we'll see them all around the community because that's just how we are now. Kind of going back to, your discussion, since things have really been more streamlined at the city level and there's just a higher degree of efficiency
And professional.
and professionalism from, the staff were already pretty much like that. So they've only improved because they're just great people. But our management level has come up way up in the last 9 years. And so our current city manager and our last city manager were both fantastic people, big visionaries, efficient and professional people. And this is why we have success now at getting people to not only serve the city within the city hierarchy, but it's also why we have 150 nonprofits in town now, too, because everything is just kind of humming along at a decent pace. It's a little frenetic sometimes, actually. It's a little crazy how many people we work with that are part of nonprofits. I agree that C4C is part of that success. And I think it's amazing that we don't have to repeat the tenets of C4C about the civility portion of it, because it just happens now. We don't have to say, hey, this is why we started, because we didn't have true civility in town. It's actually just happening because we're all getting together to accomplish common goals. And that's a big change in the last 9 years for sure. So.
And I wanted to say, just on the committee appointments, again, I participated in the planning commission interviews, for instance, and it was a lot of people and all very qualified, and it was a very hard decision. So I don't want anybody to feel like they weren't good enough because they didn't get picked or anything like that, because everybody would have been fantastic, and we just kind of had to make the best decisions that we could. So I just really want to thank everybody for applying, and I hope that if they didn't get on a position, then we see them applying again very soon.
Yeah, how many people applied for planning commission? Remember?
10, yeah.
10 for 3
Yep.
spots. So that's
Wow.
3 times the amount of people that we needed, so.
And thankfully, a lot of people applied for, 2 or 3
Multiple.
committees, so I think we were able to, I think we all had kind of a goal to accommodate as many people as possible,
Yep.
'cause we really wanted to make sure that we had just as many voices as possible, and I think we were successful in doing that.
Okay. All right, on to staff comments. City Manager Wheeler, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will be giving the staff updates tonight, so buckle up. Be comfortable. Okay, so the goal setting process, I wanted to get your confirmation about what our plan will be coming up next year, which is just in about 20 days here. So similar to last year, I thought we would run an online open comment period for folks to kind of weigh in on what they think the council should focus on in terms of priorities and projects and any new initiatives and ideas. Kind of just general feedback and a way for people to contribute online. We would like to also do another open house, if council's comfortable with that. I think that was pretty successful last year, and our open houses, our last two open houses, including this week, have been very well attended and successful. So we were looking at January 29th as a potential date for an evening. I know Councilor-elect Pellerin is not available. She's going to be out of town for about a month in January and February, but she would be okay with us moving forward with the open house. We are under kind of a time crunch, at the start of the year to try to do goal setting and have council adopt goals before we start work on the budget, because I like to get those goals incorporated in our budget process and in our proposed budget.
That's a Sunday night, is that correct?
No.
That is
29th?
January 29th?
January 29th would be a
Is a Wednesday.
We have 5 Wednesdays, I
Oh.
think, in January.
Do you have a time and thought in mind?
Unless you guys think differently, I think an evening, here or another city well, there's not, another public facility would be appropriate.
Like 5 o'clock?
Recycling center, maybe? City of-
5 o'clock or so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
I
own
think
them.
I'm okay.
Okay,
This would be a goal-setting open house.
yes.
Yeah, send me an invite, I guess, on my calendar.
And then another hold the date, we were looking for dates for actually having the goal setting retreat or the goal setting session. I think last year we might have done a Tuesday in February. We were looking at potentially Thursday, the 20th, that week after President's Day. If you're available during the day,
I'll be in
that's fine.
Mallorca. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I wish, right? Yeah, I'm,
So we'll put out holds for those
February the-
dates. February 20th?
Thank you.
so far so good for me.
Okay, great.
How about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's
Would
already
that
on my
be during
calendar.
the day?
Okay.
If that works, it's up
I'm
to
not
you guys.
available that day during the day.
You're not? Okay.
Nope.
We'll come up with alternatives.
2 o'clock in the morning.
I go get more skin burned off on that day.
Morning or afternoon?
Yeah.
Afternoon. I can do morning.
We'll make
Morning's
sure we have enough
okay.
time.
I could do morning until about 1 o'clock.
That's about the time period that we did last year.
Yeah.
Like
Just so you know, I mean,
8 or
my
9.
appointment's at 2:15, so.
Okay, we might be able to make that work if you're okay.
And they
with
just
that.
moved it on me today, so. Or else I would have been wide open.
Upcoming things, Central Oregon Cities Organization, COCO, the holiday luncheon is on Monday. So they do a little, presentation, events, panels, and then lunch. I think it's 9:30 at Redmond City Hall. Coffee with Council was this week at Sisters Coffee. Something to talk about goal setting in terms of like our communication and engagement will be the format of those, locations. I think Sisters Coffee worked okay. It wasn't as noisy, it seemed like.
Right.
But any suggestions you would have about getting folks to be able to attend those time, days of the week, things like that.
We only had 2 though, right?
Yeah.
Kathy was there. Hi, Kathy.
And maybe branching out into the evening
Yeah.
occasionally.
Switching it up.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Drinks with council instead of coffee with council.
Cocktails with council.
Cocktail.
Mocktails.
Especially when it's, light.
That would be fun, actually.
Yeah.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Have
Maybe
somebody
coffee in
making
the winter
mocktails.
Or something, light
Mocktails would be
fairs
good.
and.
I like it. Mocktails with counselors. I think that's a great idea. Have somebody making some fruity drinks or something.
Little umbrellas in them.
I like them.
Virgin pina coladas for
Ate
everybody.
a coconut.
Uh,
cut in half.
I've been meeting with our new counselors, our counselor-elects, this week, and they've been going through orientations with meeting with staff, and I think we're doing tours on Friday, so I'm excited to get them up to speed and hopefully be able to start with a little bit of a jog as we head into goal setting and everything else that we'll be starting on January 8th. We'll be the swearing in. Sue Carey's been working, with the with our community partners on the houselessness conversation, and I think you saw in the Nugget this week an article. Also, I had a letter in there about sort of the continuing work, and one of the things that she did this week was sent out sort of a draft, sort of working action plan. Our concept will be that our community partners will break into kind of groups to start doing like working group work on specific actions, to start building an action plan that then we would go back to the community and get input on that and prioritization and things. So Councilor Blum had been a part of that, and the mayor is part of that group. But I have to say it's been pretty successful, having that team come together, good attendance, and still a lot of energy and participation going on with that group. That's yet to be named. We might just continue to call it community
I
partnership.
threw a name your way, but it's not ready for prime time yet.
Yeah,
You remember?
we'll workshop it.
Yeah.
It might be. The final board meeting for Explore Sisters is tomorrow, and I think there's a couple outgoing members, Casey and Krista, that will be finishing their terms, and then 2 new members will be appointed, hopefully in January. And I think the city still has those ex officio seats. The mayor and Carrie attend those meetings. So the next one is tomorrow. Starting January 2nd, we have camping reservation season starts.
my
So if
God.
you remember this year, how like every year it gets more and more popular. So staff will be ready or get the phones all hot and ready for January 2nd.
Isn't it like 40 or 50% of the season sells out the first day or something? I'm gonna say we need to have a pool. What percentage it is, I'll take 39.
Okay.
Unfair.
This week or last week, staff also started our conversations with the new sheriff on contract negotiations, something that will be on our work plan for the next year, negotiating that contract with DCSO. All indications are things are good, and happy to be here and working with us on our making sure that we're taken care of and have the right folks here and the right public safety services for our community.
Is that a low hanging fruit goal, kind of? It's like you can throw it on there and say, oh yeah, that's gonna be a real hard one to do, right?
You never know.
Yeah.
I don't
You need to
speak too
fill-
soon.
Yeah, if you need to fill in one, there's one you can throw in.
There'll be some policy choices and decision points with the council, especially as we head into the budget. I'm sure there'll be some budget adjustments with the contract.
I have a feeling it's not gonna be the same price.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Let's see. So in community development, thank you to counselors and the mayor attending the UTB open house. There was about 200 attendees. The consultant and Scott made presentations. There was breakout discussions. Feedback was excellent. I think there was some lively conversation. Again, the attendance is pretty phenomenal. I mean, we've seen I think we underestimated just how
Capacity,
popular
yeah.
and capacity for these things. We were thinking that, a dark night in December, and people do show up. And so thank you to the community for coming and giving some great input. So the steering committee and PC and city council meetings will probably, the next round of those type of meetings will probably be in later January and February as we continue the refinement of the concepts in the area. And so right now, actually, there's an open online forum for people to participate in the process online. So that just went out yesterday. So that's open. This week, the Planning Commission approved this week or last week, the decision went out. This week on the cottage developments for Larch Commons, that's called, for East and West. That's the Sisters Habitat property, and that's the 23 cottage units and the couple of duplexes. And the city had provided the affordable housing grant and also the workforce housing grant for that project. So the decision's out. The appeal period runs for, but there was no one on the record. Ends on Christmas Day. Yeah.
That was me, sorry.
And I know we've been giving you updates every month on the status of this, but the application for the dark sky certification was officially submitted. We expect a pretty quick turnaround. I think their board meets this week. So we expect to hear soon if our application was approved. You may have seen the antelope. got it
Yeah.
first.
No,
If you just had a little more gumption, took all those streetlights down in the middle of the night like she did,
No,
we'd have gotten it by now.
I mean, a population of 37.
Yeah.
So we're
You know what?
And
3,700.
36 of whom were really upset there were no longer any streetlights.
You know what I'll say? Good on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yep.
think of, because what's their city capacity?
Right.
It's
Yeah,
the
that-
mayor and one half administrator or something.
I think they have like what person in the community that's gung ho about this, but hey, we will be the largest community
Yeah, right.
city, incorporated
For a
city.
while.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we were even mentioned in some of the press about having an application in and likely the next community to be certified. So if you hadn't had the chance, maybe we should share that when it gets approved, but the application it looks great. We had help from Explore Sisters and others and putting together an application that looks really, it looks good. It goes through all the things that the city's done with the code changes and pictures and things like that.
I hate to add on our plate, but I think we should have a little celebration at a city council meeting and have the astronomy club in town, come in and just say, because without their push and their dedication to what they really like to do, and there's a lot of people out there that can be thanked. And, we had a little committee and,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I think it's a good idea. I
Scott
think that
needs a
would-
piece of cake.
Especially when we get the sign,
Right. Yeah.
putting up the sign on the side of the highway in the pitch black darkness though. And
No, you do it in the day.
Photo op.
You install it in the day and you just come reveal it at nighttime. You just,
yeah.
Should be like a neon sign.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Really bright.
Explore Sisters also applied for a grant that has to do with sort of promoting the astrotourism. And so we supported that, and that'd be kind of fun to see if they can get some dollars to kind of lean into that with some more assets and programming around stargazing and maybe even focusing at one of our parks as a place to stargaze. And maybe we look at signage and other things that we can incorporate with some of our parks. Defensible Spaces will be coming back in January. So that will be a new version that incorporates the council and planning commission's comments so far. And then after that, we'll schedule a public hearing, likely the next meeting or so in February, if all goes well and the council's comfortable with that, get that adopted. And then we'll be working on the building hardening code work too in February, March next year. And then finally, Emmy Shoup passed her AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners. So we have a new staff member or a staff member who is newly minted as a certified planner on staff. So
That's fantastic.
congratulations to Emmy. Put a lot of work into getting those exams passed. All right, Public Works. So East Portal, I think you've seen some of my updates on that and pictures we've taken. It's about 50% complete. So all that subgrade work with the underground utilities and rock work and clearing is in. About 90% of the curbing has been poured and is in, and the base rock. And so at this point, the ground needs to thaw out before we could do more. So we're waiting for the springtime to complete the work there. All the contracts on Barclay Drive have been signed, and we'll probably start seeing some mobilization on that project next year, January-ish. So that another fun project getting rolling here. McKinney Butte. You've probably seen the pedestrian crossings are done at a lot of those intersections, Arrowleaf, Wheeler, Brooks Camp. And then the Mackenzie Meadow speed bump will happen during spring break. We got to time it with the school being out for traffic impacts and things like that. And then West Side Pump Station, which is an interesting project, right? To add that sewer pumping capacity over on the west side. The design is about complete. Public Works Advisory Board reviewed it last night. They had a lot of great comments, suggestions about public outreach and notification, because it's not just that pump station, it's the force main that's going to be heading down, Pine and turning down Jefferson. And so there will be impacts. There'll be, road closures and things like that they had some great suggestions on making sure we communicate that and inform the public about potential, construction impacts. I think that work will take several months once it gets rolling in the spring. And then finally, we're working we've put out an RFP to work for get work on landscaping design services for the roundabout. And so we have a scope of work for that. We'll include on the review team, other folks like SPRD, members of advisory boards and things like that to make sure we get a good review, and then coordination with the art, which, speaking of art, the call for artists does close at, I think, the second week in January. But Carrie is going to be putting out a big e-blast to, I think, 6,000 artists that are regional, to try to drum up interest in getting more submissions for a roundabout art piece.
How many do we have now?
5 so far. Yeah,
Yeah.
they trickle in and then more come in towards the deadline. But yeah, like I said, it's not until the second week in January.
They're just different cats, man. Those artists, they just are.
And I think that's it. Any questions for me, or you guys don't meet again until January 8th? So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We will see each other before then, but as a council body, this
Well,
is
Are
it.
you
It's another
taking
year.
off or between now and, because I'd be mayor pro tem.
I'm not going anywhere. I don't know. I have no plans to go anywhere. So
I will be gone the week between Christmas and New Year's, so the 26th to the 1st.
I mean, I might take some days off, but it's going to be couch days. You know, staycation.
Yes.
So there's room for that.
Paul's not here, but I was gonna suggest that when they start that pressure main work, that they put a sign at either end of Jefferson saying that, yes, we're digging up your street, we're doing it on purpose.
Okay.
Ba-da-boom.
All right. Any questions? You're too thorough, like,
All right, great.
yeah, that's a problem. Do you want to go first or last?
Last.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. Thanks to all of you for carrying the weight while I was not. Parks Board met the day I got back, actually, and so we had a pretty good meeting. And one of the
Is that
things-
the one where Eli came out of the meeting and said, best meeting ever?
Yes. Yep, he did.
I thought, whoa, what was that?
And the main topic of discussion was working with them on helping with the process of naming the transportation hub. Bussy McBus is not on the list. Sorry.
What'd you say, Bussy McBus?
Bus, yep, yep. Like Bodie
I can understand why.
It was discussed.
That's kind of sad.
Anyway, and so that, and I think that looking at the makeup of the committee, based on the appointments, we've lost a couple of good members to other committees within the city. And, but I like the look of the makeup of the folks that are coming in there. I think there's gonna be a lot going on, and I want to give them credit because after Rebecca made her presentation on the process and talked about the timeline, they asked that we meet monthly during that process in order to have the maximum amount of input as opposed to bi-monthly, which is what the group has been doing since we completed the Creekside enhancements, because there has been a lot to talk about. So they're ready to step up to the plate, and rather than getting a subcommittee, they decided that they would be the subcommittee, that they wanted all to be at the plate working on that. They're taking it very seriously.
I don't know if I like that. No, I'm kidding.
So that's about all I have. Thank you all for putting up with my being gone. In fact, you probably had parties while I was gone. Welcome back.
We didn't,
Thought about-
we didn't have time.
What time is it in Gary's land?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had trouble figuring.
He
it
was
out.
in-
Just 3 hours ahead.
He was in Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was in tomorrow and I almost didn't come back.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer.
Yeah, the UGB open house went really well, just robust turnout. I think, Monday night, date night for everybody was that event, so it was exciting. And a lot of really great questions and engagement, and I think that goes, and I wasn't hearing a lot of, gruff, and I think it's because of the strong work that the city and the Community Development Department, the UGB Steering Committee have been doing all along to get this message out and get this in front of the community. And I think that was a really obvious sign at that event that there wasn't anybody pointing fingers or yelling or anything like that. There was a
No,
lot of good.
no
discussion.
growth or signs or?
No, no signs, no.
People were
Anything.
generally civil.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, there were opinions, but you know, it was very civil and,
Yeah.
so it was fantastic. And, yeah, and also just, we need to just, you know, keep up that pace, I think, and transparency, I think, very important. Let's see, I attended the Holiday Palooza, the parade and the tree lighting. That went really well. Good weather for that, besides being really cold. That's our thing this time of year.
Did you see the parade beforehand?
Yes, I went to
Yeah.
the parade. as
Parade
well.
and, yeah, the whole Palooza.
Yep. Yeah, so that went really well. So thanks for the Parks District for that. Yeah, coffee with counselor is Jordan already mentioned.
We've been to the
And-
same things all.
I know. Oh, here's one. I did, I'm participating in it's a COAC, COIC subcommittee, just helping out with a, woman at COIC who has some dollars to do, advertising around fatality accidents. And so wanted kind of a committee of people from, you know, COAC and other organizations to kind of help her, guide her in that process. So, sat in on a meeting for that. And that was about it the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I wanted to add on the body count at the thing, I was pleasantly surprised how many people were there, how many people stayed that didn't have a place to sit.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people standing. There were 12 tables. I did a quick estimate. There were 12 to 13 people at each table. That's how you get to the 144, 150, and then another 50 or more standing around the perimeter of the room or sitting in seating that was rolled out. Little concerned the fire marshal who was there might say, get a little full here, but nobody said anything. It was really good. But the room, to say the room was packed would not be an understatement.
Matt did the count,
Overstatement.
205 is the actual head
Yeah.
count that I heard, so.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So is our Park and Rec next door, are they gonna have a big meeting room by any chance? Is that, have you seen their plans?
They have the kind of central area, the kind of lobby area, and then there's the gymnasium. I don't know if that's suitable. But no, I mean, it's mostly converting the classroom spaces on that wing to meeting spaces or offices.
Cause I think that the go-to's always been the fire hall and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of getting small.
Well, this was at the elementary school again, which, I think fire marshal is okay. The capacity is bigger than you expect.
Yeah.
Is always, I guess if you're standing room only and sardines, but, yeah, the high school is another option for big meetings. They have a little bigger auditorium, but, and the elementary school has been an interesting kind of space. I mean,
It worked well.
Yeah.
And the acoustics were good in that room, which I've been in a lot of school cafeterias are not. And sound system was good, screen was good. I mean, it really was a nice room for a presentation. And I think that, I think we'll see another big crowd when we start to get narrowed down to the final things. We had some people there who said, well, why don't you just pick something and move right along with it? But, well, this is not 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Sure.
We're doing it right. And, so
I think a lot of people also like showing up at the new elementary school to get their eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
That's definitely part of it,
the-
but I don't think that's the main thrust. The main thrust is the topic, so.
The thing about room capacity is when you set those tables up, the room capacity cuts in half.
Um,
And the Forest Service, when they open up their new ranger station, they're gonna have a room. I don't think it's gonna be that big, but they are setting it up so that there is a room that after hours can be used for public use.
And I think they've also next door just gone out for their final design phase for what the building will look like. There's still some unanswered questions about how that space will be utilized, that the board has not quite settled down on yet.
I'm impressed how Parks and Rec has done. I mean, they've had a lot of help, but they haven't needed a lot of us, to be honest with you, a little bit coordination with us. And man, they've done a lot of stuff on their own. I think
Jennifer knows her stuff.
it's really impressive with the budget they have,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. They punch way above their weight. Anyway, Yeah, I wanted to say one more about the budget committee. We had somebody apply for the budget committee that had lived in town for 2.5 weeks. They've been here 2.5 weeks and they like, wanted to get involved. And I was so curious to that. I gave them my card and said, let's go have coffee. And I heard a story and they're just new to town and they're, they Googled it and moved here from Winthrop, Washington. So, a smaller town to a bigger town.
It's also Western design.
Yeah,
Yep.
700 people. Yeah, and they moved here from down here. Just wanted to be in a different place, a little more vibrant, and this is their speed. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that someone had been here only 2.5 weeks, wanted to get on a city board. He didn't make it,
And the
but
budget committee yet.
in the budget committee, but he's that kind of guy, had the
Number
financials.
guy.
And stuff, yeah, so, I thought that was cool. I want to plug the Cocoa Annual Holiday Luncheon on Monday again. Are you coming? I'm interested. Good. Because Senator Golden, I think, is supposed to be there and we can kind of, maybe we can corner him and start talking insurance and, we know he's doing something and, we've gotten some communication from, Commissioner Chang about he's interested in helping out a little bit in that arena too. So I think that regional cooperation is important because I think if we were trying to do it on our own, we would not be as successful as having a county commissioner or two and a state senator on board to hear our part. And related to that, I don't know if you saw this Oregon State Fire Marshal Defensible Space Assessment Incentive Reimbursement Pilot Program Guideline sheet. And
I do have emails out on that to follow up on that.
good. Eligible communities, there's a whole page of them and Sisters is not one of them. And I'm like, that's kind of ridiculous. That came in from a concerned citizen and I wrote him and I said, that's ridiculous. We'll look into it. And I think you probably answered him as well. So, if they're giving away $250 gift cards for having better defensible space, I want Sisters in on it. I mean, that's just crazy that our community isn't considered to be one of the areas. And I think,
Yeah, what criteria did they use? Did you
well,
share?
I don't,
It's listed right there.
Oh.
yeah,
In the first,
yeah, if OSFM was mobilized in the past 10 years and having high fire exposure,
Well,
And-
comprehensive analysis, data,
there
vulnerability,
was a 2018 report, which is very dated.
Logix report.
Yeah, and then.
okay, so we're
and
not
also a
really
CDC,
likely to have a
report.
fire
Well-
because we haven't
Well,
had
that just
one.
means we've been lucky and
Yeah.
they want us to continue being lucky instead of actually helping us out when maybe it's because we've been proactive and we want to continue to be proactive, right? So I found it a little silly.
Could have been a Scribner's error.
Yeah, right. Could be. So we'll find out about that. But I'm glad that there are enough people concerned in the community that they email and say, why aren't we on this list? And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know about that.
That
one." So
email
that's-
was like, oh, what about this?
That's good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having you at Cocoa. It's just a great event where you get a lot of people from different parts of the arena in the same room. We're gonna have, I think, 6 elected officials from the state level, some of them local, some of them not. So that's really good. And, we're gonna bang the same drum a little bit. It's water. Fire mitigation's a little newer topic regionally for this particular group. But it's not any less important. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit too, at least you and I are, as much as we can. I get to, I'm running one of the panels, which is probably the first panel, and it is gonna be on our regional water. We like to update people because we've been working with the Water Caucus, Helms and Owens on this for a couple of years now, and they've already agreed to extend the mitigation program. So that's good. So we're not changing the rules too much in that area, although we still have the new water rules that we're still working with. But we'll give an update on that as well. Other than that, I personally just want to thank everybody. It's been a great year. I think we got a lot of good stuff done. We have a lot of good stuff in the hopper, and there's more to come.
Always.
Always, right? But the more success we have now and the better we plan now, hopefully the less emergency situations we have in the future, right? So you know, I want you to be able to take solace in that you've done so many good things over the last 9 years that we're set up for success for the next 9 years or longer. So thank you so much. And I personally, again, just appreciate you so much. You've been great, and I can't say enough about it.
Thank you.
So thank you.
very much.
And Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everybody just from me. And
Yeah.
you have the floor.
Yeah, you know that you are doing a pretty good job when people are standing in line to take your job when you leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good indicator that,
Yeah.
you know, that things are going pretty good. For anybody who is going to follow up on housing issues, and the governor's budget has pinpointed housing once again as kind of there's three categories that she's really putting the emphasis on, and that's it. The Regional Housing Authority Board is having a Zoom meeting on Monday to refine our kind of goals or strategic plan, our parameters, things we, you know, we believe in or whatever, so that the COIC staff can start preparing for the next legislative session on how the housing that, and the spending that will be involved in that, how that will impact us, how we can have a position and make sure that it applies to this region and not just to the valley regions, which is often the case. And so COIC has a not a transportation, but a person that really keeps track of this kind of funding, and it's going to be channeled through this Regional Housing Authority Committee. So if that's something that interests you, they're in baby steps right now, but the last meeting we had was the best meeting they've had. So I think they're maturing a little bit. Once again, you know, next year there'll be some new people, so it'll be, you know, one step forward, two step backwards sometimes. But
And that's not, it's not Charo, and Charo's not gonna go in this direction. There's still two different entities. at
they
this
still are
time?
two different entities. However, the wish was by COIC that the Charo representatives be the representatives on the Regional Housing Board. Whether or not that continues to be a priority remains to be seen. So you kind of, if you take that, you kind of get the houseless stuff too.
Would you recommend that we continue to do that? Because you were that person for both
Right.
those entities, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. There is definitely some, and then once again, being on our local group that is starting to come forward. There is a good reason. There's a lot of crossover for sure. On Charo, I don't know, you noticed in Susan Cobb's report from COIC, she put a little zinger in there that Tammy Bainey had said that COIC was no longer going to be supporting Charo.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I saw that.
And so we have a Charo meeting next Thursday. So we shall see, you know, there, because the Charo Board is not really interested in being a subcommittee of the Regional Housing Authority because of things we've discussed in the past. The Regional Housing Authority is not in agreement on a lot of housing issues for the homeless. And so the Charo Board is real concerned how that's going to work out if they become kind of a subcommittee for that. But one of the goals that are being proposed for the Regional Housing Authority Board is on houselessness. And there's only like 5. So it is a big thing. So it may end up, and you maybe know more about it than I do, as
Yeah.
far as where it's going.
Well, I think partly it's just COIC has started taking on a lot, right? And I think Tammy and her staff have concerns about being able to handle administering and supporting staff-wise and 2 different, you know, 2 boards and more, right? Because there's also, there's all these other, you know, regional committees. And if you remember, you know, CHRO was originally a county supported function, had its own staff, and then that, lost staff members, and then had interim things and on staff on loan, and then COIC took it up, and I think hopefully by next Thursday, some things are being worked out to be able to propose what is the solution going forward for being able to staff this, and whether that's looks different than it is today. Obviously, it probably will. We'll find out, and we'll be in touch about it. But I think there'll be something that will be kind of presented to the board of like, here's how we, again, because I know there's been like 3 meetings in a row of like, what is the future? But I think there's going to be a different approach for how it gets administered or how it gets.
Are you going to attend
supported.
that next meeting? I mean, you're
Yes.
still.
It probably for consistency's sake, and they know there's turnover because Lapine has a new representative actually, but Redmond, Bend, and the county have continuing folks.
Right.
So, but there will be a lot to catch up on. I mean, you were sitting right there with them, and you were part of that board, a part of the Regional Housing Council, and then also the partnership here. So, there will be whoever is that new representative for those groups. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of like,
It's a
what
lot up in the air.
Yeah.
And so, that's one thing I want to say is whoever decides to jump into that and, I'd certainly be willing to mentor
Yeah.
a little
Have
bit.
have a
if it-
coffee.
if you felt the need, to some degree, you want to go in new and ask and see your own, see it through your eyes, and there will be other new people there. From the Pine person will be new as well, if they choose to participate. They're kind of, they're not seeing that that's much benefit to them. So I don't know how long they'll be participating. But, and the same thing with the Regional Housing Council. The participation from Madras and Prineville is somewhat hit and miss. And then you get a go-getter that comes, and then they're just real energized and ready to go. So it kind of depends on the mix of the group and their energy on that particular topic. So, but I would, certainly be willing to, work with someone if they felt they wanted to tackle it.
Well, in your opinion,
Hmm.
is there one group here of those two that's more likely to be successful in this mission than the other? And that's a loaded question, and I understand that. And if you don't want to answer it, I'm okay with it.
Well,
I'm
The
not trying to
Charo
jump.
Board is getting things done. They got a bunch of money. They got the money out there. They're approving things. The people on the Charo Board are the people on their councils that can get things done.
Okay.
And the Houseless Leadership Coalition, they really like that. They think that more is getting done faster with the Charo Board than has been, because they're elected officials. And most of the groups that they work with are not. And so they see this as jumping over several hoops. So they like it. But once again, they're not real sure how that merges in with, unfortunately, the dynamic that the state wants it to be is not what we have. So how do you continue to have the success you have and still merge it in with the financing that is going to come from the state?
So you have the Charo, which is a little bit of a round peg, and is successful with a square hole over here that the state's expecting, and things are.
Right, and so I'm sure COC, I see is saying, well, there's not gonna be any money for Charo. So you're either gonna come in through some other group, or where's your funding gonna come from?
I wonder if the person who came up with that idea was the same one that made that list you were referring to. About the fence in space.
Well, I think we were a little bit of an odd duck in that the rest of the organizations that got together did do it regionally. And we were one of the few that just did Deschutes County.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, this was a pilot program, right?
Yeah.
That the governor provided funding towards these regional coordinated houseless offices, and here it's just Deschutes County. And now, this expires in what, 3, 4 years, right? And the
Right.
funding is what, there's like 700,000 or something, you know.
Yeah, we have, have
It
almost
started to
$1
dwindle.
million left, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, do you want to stay and spend that money and then get it out fast and mean and whatever, or do you want to build something different for the future? And what does that look like? So it's still a work in project. I also want to say that I'm gonna be watching you on the fire issue. Big time. So, beat the same.
I think you're gonna
same
hear a
drum.
lot, actually.
Yeah,
You're gonna hear a lot. It's gonna be, a discussion that's gonna get community-wide, much like these other things that we're doing now. I think this next year is gonna be pretty robust with that discussion.
when you're, 10 years ago, it's like, well, what can sisters do?
Yeah.
What impact do we have? When we're on committees, everybody ignores us. No, so there's no point in even attending it. Well, now that's different because we have people like Jennifer and like Michael and Gary and everybody else who has said, no, we want our say. We want to participate. We have a voice. And we're starting to get some energy and some respect on that.
And I don't think we're getting two new wallflowers either.
No.
I think they're
No.
going to be very willing and able to speak their mind and represent the
Jump in.
city.
Yep.
They're gonna jump in with both feet, I think, both of them.
So-
Doesn't mean you could be replaced, but at least have the people coming in, they're going to help.
Well,
pick up
everybody
some of
brings their
some of
own
the work.
assets, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. But
Yeah.
I'll be watching you on the fire issue, just don't be dodging it.
I think, if we do it right, I think that what we do here in Sisters can lead communities of our size or even some bigger. And I think we've done it in the past. And I think one of the reasons that we, sometimes we say, oh, we've been really lucky. We haven't been burned out this year. Well, we do a lot of prescribed burning around here, maybe even more aggressive than other districts do. And I think that set us up for, I think the fire community itself has set us up for future success. And I think just having the right people on this up here right now that are willing to stick their neck out a little bit and actually say, I know the fire map's this and the fire map's that. Well, what do we need to do best for our own community? And I think that that's what we do different here.
And you probably are all aware of this, but I think Ian comes back next week, if he's not back this week.
He's back.
He's back, yeah, and promised staff he wasn't gonna leave, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to be back.
He is?
I've seen him.
Good.
Yeah, he's happy to be home, so.
Good.
Is there anything else? Okay, anything else? You want a last word on the fire stuff? Come on,
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
That's the last word.
Well, okay. I'd like to, thank you again. And, let's see, next is, let's adjourn Andrea's last meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
At
Last-
Trails.
Council meeting, yeah.